What is going on, PWC fans? It is your boy C-Ton bringing you PWC D-League Week 1 Power Rankings. Now that we have an official week of games played, we can actually give a little bit of insight without just kind of looking at teams and guessing where they would go, because we've gotten to see those teams in action. So the way we did this was X and I both talked about where we felt teams should be placed, and then we basically just averaged it out into one cohesive list. Unfortunately, X still does not have a microphone, so I will be doing this one alone once again, probably asking X for his input when I need drinks. So anyway, without further ado, let's start off at number 12. Number 12 on our power rankings, we have the Sale Excadrilles, coached by Gamer. This game got out of hand very, very quickly. Smeargle basically got in Scoliopeed, and then Scoliopeed just broke through Gamer's team. If Gamer had played around the Scoliopeed better, I think his prep looked okay from like some of the damage spreads that were taken, but the way he played around that Scoliopeed is why he is at number 12. Basically, Scoliopeed came in on turn 2, I believe it was. Let me go through the replay. Yep, on turn 2, Scoliopeed came in. Ferrothorn was on the field and can take a hit, but he switches out. Scoliopeed gets up a Swords Dance. Then Nidoking dies. He switches into Victini, who then switches out into Zapdos, which is 2-hit KO'd. So one of the three mons on his team that can take hits, he basically sacked on a double. So that was a really bad start to the start of it. And then he ended up sacking Ferrothorn, I believe, the next turn to get off a Leech Seed. And then he eventually went into a Suicune that also took a hit. So he had 3 mons that could take a hit from this +2 Scoliopeed, and he decided to sack 3 mons instead of just going into one of those instead. So that's the biggest reason that he is at number 12. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of his tech, his strategies, because of this blunder in playstyle. I'd say for next week, just take your time. Like, Scoliopeed is obviously huge and threatening, but you had some checks to it that you just kind of left on the sideline. Like, Scoliopeed or Suicune can come in, throw off Scalds, and potentially get burns. Like, you had ways around this Scoliopeed, but at that point in the game, it was already over because Hawlucha can come in and just clean up. Additionally, Scarf Circuitry could have cleaned up, and it could have been a 5-0. Luckily, you got a crit on the Blue Flare to take out the Circuitry. I believe that's what the play was. Crit Blue Flare kept you from a 5-0, brought it down to a 4-0. But I think I was talking to Sniper, and he said that the prep seemed to be there. It just kind of fell through with some poor play. So hopefully we can work on that for next week and raise you up higher on the power rankings. With that being said, we'll move on to number 11. We have the New Jersey Dwebbles, coached by Galvantula the Tim. One of the issues that X and I had with this battle was the fact that he could have won pretty easily. The Scizor was his big check to Sharpedo, and he allowed that Scizor to go down to an Exploud that was clearly offensive. You have to understand your own team when you're battling, because you obviously know that you have no speed on this Scizor, so it can be very easily speed crept by other Pokemon, like an offensive Exploud. Like, that Scizor was the only thing stopping a Sharpedo sweep. Additionally, if he was like Sash Dugtrio, it would have made a little bit more sense allowing Scizor to go down, but it wasn't Sash Dugtrio either. Sharpedo just blew through this team once Scizor went away, and that's exactly what happened. Scizor went down, and then Sharpedo came in late game and just cleaned up. Another thing that we had a little bit of an issue with during this battle was he was one play away from winning. Basically, all he had to do was make an aggressive double into Slurpuff, and then Slurpuff won once Joel let his Weezing go down. But I think Joel kept the offensive pressure up pretty well. I think Tim prepped very well for the Lopunny. Traditionally, Goth allows you to revenge that thing very easily, but I think it was just a matter of being out-prepped in this game, not having additional ways of handling that Lopunny aside from Unburdened Slurpuff, maybe being able to kill it. So that was another big issue with this. We feel it was kind of a balance between Joel prepping really well and Tim under-prepping. His switch-ins to Exploud were pretty non-existent, but then again, most teams' switch-ins to Exploud are very non-existent. Additionally, if Joel hadn't revealed to be Life Orb, we would have been more understanding of his Scissor staying in, because expecting Choice Specs, obviously Scissor can take Choice Specs Boom Bursts, but he revealed to be Life Orb, so it was very realistic that he had speed on his Exploud as well. But yeah, overall, we feel it wasn't the worst performance. The two trappers didn't really do anything because Joel's team has so much momentum, and he can just throw Shed Shell on his only passive Mon, and that was pretty much the end of the trappers. But that's why we have Tim at number 11. The Slurpuff could have come in after the Weezing went down, and pretty much any double allowed that Slurpuff to win the game. But unfortunately that didn't happen, so we can't really discuss that, and it ended up being a 4-0, I believe. Let me skip to the end real quick. A 3-0. But yeah, really good game to Tim. We have him at 11 for those reasons. We feel the reliance on the trappers on a team that doesn't get trapped very easily was pretty bad, especially when, I'm assuming it was Scarf Dugtrio, based off the fact that it wasn't Focus Sash. He has a speed boosting Sharpedo that can just protect and then outspeed. So, I don't know. A little bit of an issue with the prep on that side. And that's why we have Tim at number 11. At number 10, we have Thunder, coach of the Minnesota Hyperfangs. And this game, basically we have Thunder at number 10 because he forgot his ability on Tangrowth. It seems kind of harsh, but that's the biggest reason that we have him so low, because Tangrowth Alomomola had a very good defensive pairing in this matchup against Itz, and Tangrowth just got whittled down super easily without that Regenerator health coming back every turn. We also feel that Mew being Nasty Plot set wasn't the best in this matchup because of how defensive the Nidoking's team is. I think it would have taken a lot to get through the team. I feel like Stall Breaker would have been really beneficial. Get off a couple hazard statuses. Keep boosting yourself up. Super Fang chip damage was really nice for the likes of Sylveon, Milotic, Bronzong, really limiting their recovery. Obviously, Sylveon and Milotic both get recovery in Recover and Wish, but the Super Fang basically nullifies those turns. And if it is Flame Orb Milotic, which is super common nowadays, Milotic isn't even gaining all of its health back. So that's really another kind of issue with the prep. We felt the Scarf Galvantula Bring was very strong in this matchup because looking at its whatever's team, the only real answer he has to it is kind of Chestnut, and Chestnut didn't come to the match 1, and 2, Chestnut gets whittled down pretty easily, and the Volt Switch pressure is absolutely huge in this battle. So that was a really good bring on Thunder's part. But yeah, overall, the Tangrowth not having its Regenerator ability was very, very catastrophic, and that is the main reason that we have him down at number 10, because without that Regenerator, he might have had a chance at winning. I think it was still an uphill climb because Sylveon just had a huge matchup in this with the team that was brought. But yeah, I mean, overall, we feel he played pretty safely, which is fine, especially when you're playing a defensive team. But without the right sets, there was no real shot of him pulling this out, because once he realized that he wasn't Regenerator Tangrowth, if he did anyway, once he realized that, he should have started pushing the pressure of the game and started trying to get out some of his threats and start really breaking holes in the team. But instead, the match stayed pretty passive for about 15 turns, exchanging like Giga Drain from Golbat to Alomomola wishing, and then it just kind of became pretty stally for a little bit. But really good game to Thunder. We feel with some better prep and a little bit more attention to detail, Thunder can jump up the rankings pretty quickly. But with the performance that he had this week, not paying attention to those minor details will be pretty catastrophic in this league, especially with D-League being as competitive as it is this season. Next up, we have the Borisha Pichus, coached by HK Saul at number 9. X and I had a pretty big disagreement on this. I think X had Pichus at 7, and I had them around 11, if I remember correctly. But some of the things that stood out to me in this battle were, I think Diancie had a really strong matchup, first of all. I think that was a tremendous bring. Diancie's always a good bring. But the way some of his mons were played, it left little to be desired. Sorry about that noise. First thing that we had that I had an issue with was Empoleon and Mantine both coming to fill the same role. And the way that he played them, he had Empoleon in on a Tauros, which Tauros gets Wild Charge. And instead of switching into, say, like a Garchomp, like if he's defensive Garchomp, or even Diancie on a potential fighting type move, like instead of making like a safe double, he went into his Mantine, and Mantine literally was just sacked very, very early in the game. So that was pretty detrimental to his chances. Mantine was a pretty good answer to Jirachi. Additionally, actually Mantine was a pretty bad bring overall. It lost to like most of the opponent's team. Maybe, I guess it can kind of check Sceptile with its natural Spadef, but yeah, I don't feel Mantine should have been at this game. Another issue that we had with the way this battle went was Volcarona setting up on sturdy Donphan. That was something. I don't necessarily know why that happened, but obviously Donphan gets sturdy, and he just allowed his Volcarona to die. If it were a Chardyberry variant of Volcarona, I would have understood a little bit more, because you can obviously eat up a Rock Slide or a Stone Edge and then proceed to kill it, and then you're in a really good position to continue forward in the match. But he wasn't Chardy, he was a Z move, and Donphan lived on sturdy and then just revenged that Volcarona, and Volcarona didn't even get a kill. So that was unfortunate, especially with Rocks not being on the field. Without Rocks on the field, Volcarona should put in a lot of work. So I'd play around that a little bit smarter. Really keep in mind what your opponent still has around. Another issue that I personally had was not scouting for the Scarf on Thunderous Therian. Because that Thunderous came in very quickly after Diancie killed the Jirachi. So that kind of indicates to you that he is Choice Scarfed. Additionally, the only mon that naturally outspeeds Diancie on the opponent's team was Sceptile, and Sceptile can't one-shot a Diancie. So you should have known, or you should have considered the potential of, whatchamacallit, a Scarf mon in the back, and it turns out that the opponent had 2 Scarf mons. Other than that, I feel he played pretty well. He had strong offensive pressure throughout the game. It's just the times that he asserted those pressures were a little bit off, in my opinion. But anyway, with that being said, we will move on from number 9 to number 8, and we have the Flint Muddy Waters, coached by Lagoon. The Lagoon, brain farted. Lagoon had some really good prep with Scarf Rotom. Scarf Rotom put in a lot of work in this matchup, giving consistent pressure throughout the game. We felt that the Alolan Ninetales bring was really strong with the Aurora Veil support, especially pairing that with Zardex and the weakness policy Celesteela that was brought. The biggest issue that we had with the Ninetales set is it was super passive, and the fact that I think 5 of the 7 Aurora Veil turns were wasted, if I remember correctly. Hey, let me pull that up real quick. Annoying clicking, sorry. Yeah, by the time an offensive Mon came in, there were only 3 turns left of Aurora Veil, and then OP managed to stall out those turns very easily. So the pressure of Aurora Veil wasn't really felt throughout this battle, and that's one of the big reasons that we have him lower than Nathaniel in this next spot. We feel his prep was pretty strong. We'd just like to see Lagoon play a little bit more aggressively when he gets those Aurora Veils up. Having that Celesteela with Weakness Policy autotomize was tremendous prep. And with the Aurora Veil, I think he would have won because he ended up losing based off of Rocky Helmet damage, which he wouldn't have taken as much from that first Thunderbolt if he played more aggressively getting in the Celesteela. But overall, we felt he had really strong prep. Obviously, Muck is a great pursuit trapper for Latios. We feel OP just out-prepped him a fair amount, and that's the main reason that we have Lagoon at number 7 instead of, or number 8 instead of number 7. And speaking of that, we will move on to number 7, which is Nathaniel, coach of the Dallas Staravias. So the Dallas Staravias had, in my opinion, the most optimal 6 Mons to take on ABP's team. I feel he played a little bit. I think he made really strong predictions throughout this game. I feel like ABP played a little bit too safely in this battle. Really strong prep with the Silvally Water. Initially, I kind of questioned it because I didn't necessarily see its role, and then I realized how well it checks pretty much the entirety of ABP's team, with the exception of Tapu Koko, obviously. He brought really strong status stack on ABP's team, which is essentially what you need to do if you want to keep it whittled down. The Swords Dance red card Mimikyu set was pretty standard but very strong. Almost brought the game all the way back against the Tapu Koko, but at the end of the day, it basically came down to a war of attrition. Unfortunately, the Steelix didn't really get a chance to shine in this matchup, and yeah, overall, I think he played it very, very well. The Virizion having Toxic, being able to catch the natural switch-ins was really strong. The Will-O-Wisp Hex set was very good prep on his part, being able to take advantage of pretty much everything with the exception of Umbreon. And yeah, overall, I just feel he played the strongest out of the teams that lost. A couple turns being shifted, and he very easily could have won this game. So yeah, I feel that was, in my opinion, that was probably the best battle of the week in terms of competitive wise. It ended up being a 1-0, and that Mimikyu was able to put in a fair amount of work with that Swords Dance. Unfortunate that AVP, sorry, I forgot for a second, AVP brought the Guardian of Lola set that was able to bring down Mega Steelix. Without that, I feel like Nate would have been able to pull this game out. But anyway, that is Nate's game. We felt he played really strongly, and that's why we have him at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have Jake, coach of the Tacoma Toros, and Jake played a pretty good game. We had some issues. The reason we are at number 6 is because of some interesting tech on his part. We didn't necessarily understand the Jirachi set. Bringing Wish without Protect is kind of iffy because Jirachi set up that Wish and then it just went down. A really good play would have been to make an aggressive switch into the likes of Thundy or even Sceptile, keeping yourself at full, because he allowed himself to get taken down by that Diancie very easily. But with that being said, the dual Scarf Bring against Saul's team was incredibly strong, and you saw the prep payoff for it there. The Flash Cannon Scarf was able to take out Diancie, which was a huge threat to Jake's team. Basically, Diancie cleaned through without these dual Scarfers, and Scarf Pangoro put in a ton of work. I think he ended up getting 2 or 3 kills. The reason we have him at number 6 is because we saw some holes in the prep, but I think the biggest reason that the game was his opponent playing a little bit, I don't want to say poorly, but not playing to the best of the battle's circumstances, if that makes sense. Like, there were turns where he could have been able to set up and take advantage, but overall, he made the safe plays and was able to pull out the win. So we have him at number 6. He took advantage of his opponent not breaking the sturdy beforehand. He played it very, very intelligently. We just didn't see a whole lot aside from the intelligent dual scarf bring to have him higher than 6 at this point. Hopefully, we have more evidence as the weeks go on and we can move him higher, but for now we have him at number 6. Next up, we have ABP, coach of the Geo is 12 Flagons, still the best team name in the league. And ABP, first off, you didn't bring any nicknames, so instant -5. But in reality, we felt the Guardian of Alola set on Tapu Koko, as we talked about in Nathaniel's kind of analysis. That was an incredible bring. The team didn't really have the best ways of bringing down Mega Steelix with the other walls in mind. Obviously, he has a Gallade and he has a Darm, but Nate has a Jellicent. So both of those get switched in on by that Jellicent pretty easily. So that's something to consider. We feel you played a little bit safe, which with your team it makes sense, but a couple aggressive doubles catching Nate would have really set you ahead in this matchup. The team was also a little bit passive, which, again, once Storm came in, it could have started breaking holes through the team. It's just a matter of getting those mons in and starting to hit things very, very hard. The Registeel could have used Seismic Toss, in my opinion, because of the likes of Mimikyu and Jellicent being such prominent Will-O-Wisp bringers. So that's another thing to consider. Overall, we didn't feel you played poorly. We just feel you played a little bit passively. And unfortunately, the Gorbis this week wasn't able to pick up many kills. I don't know what the set was, but unfortunately that Hex Will-O-Wisp set was able to break the Sash and then additionally take it out immediately the next turn. So keep trying with that Gorbis. Hopefully one day it will come in and ruin some lives. I'm not sleeping on it yet, but eventually I might start sleeping on it. We feel you played Umbreon incredibly well. A little bit of more longevity out of it would have been really beneficial for your team, but I think at the point of the battle that you were at, I don't necessarily know that it was needed. We have you at number 9 for that reason. Get your Umbreon some glasses so that way it can start hitting some Toxics. But other than that, I think you played pretty strongly. And it was very close between you and number 4, which transitions, nailing this PR game. We have OP Jellicent, coach of the Anastar City Agrons, at number 4. The reason we have OP over ABP is the way OP prepped. I feel like his prep was a lot more impressive, and I feel like OP played around the Aurora Veil really, really intelligently. First of all, OP very easily could have lost this game, but he preserved his Granbull in the back for when the Celesteela came in, and he got that clutch Rocky Helmet damage off, allowing Entei to pick it off with extreme speed. Without that combination, I feel like that game was over. He could have been Shuka Tentacruel, but we obviously won't know that unless he comments and lets us know in the comments below. But yeah, I feel like the Ground DMZ on Latios was such a strong bring in this matchup, especially with the likes of Alolan Muck being the notorious switch in and pursuit trap. Latios is traditionally useless against Alolan Mucks, and you kind of took that stigma and turned it on its head with that Tectonic Rage, knocking out the Alolan Muck. So really smart bring there. Absolutely loved that. And the fact that you were able to stall out 4 turns of Aurora Veil with only losing, I think you took a little bit of chip damage on Granbull on the first Blizzard, and then you got up Stealth Rocks and ate up hits with your Mega Aggron. So you played around the Aurora Veil really well. Benefited a little bit from Lagoon playing semi-passively, but you took advantage of it. And then Calm-Minded Raikou was able to stall out the remainder of that Aurora Veil, which allowed you to pull up that win. So really impressive playing on your end. We felt that the Granbull with Rocky Helmet was incredibly intelligent, especially with likes of Zardex, Celesteela, Conk, even to an extent. Obviously, Conk gets poison jab as well, but like playing around that is pretty easy, especially with your team. And we were just really impressed overall with the prep, and more than the prep, the execution of your team and your play style. So that is why we have OP Jellicent at number 4. So really strong play by OP. Moving on, we have number 3, which is Smeargle, coach of the Hidden Valley Ralts. The reason we have Smeargle at number 3, I wanted to put him higher based off of the result of this game. Oh wait, hold on. Before we move on to Smeargle, OP, stop giving Slaybait links to the battles. Just give him a replay afterwards. I don't want to deal with reading all of his spam chat during the battles. So yeah, keep that in mind. Back up to number 3 with Smeargle, coach of the Hidden Valley Routes. I wanted to put him higher, but his opponent's play kind of left me at number 3. He obviously took advantage of the way his opponent was playing and capitalized very, very, very well, leading to an incredibly dominant win. But we feel if Gamer made some more intelligent switches on your offensive threat of Scolipede, that the game could have been a lot closer. I mean, obviously it would have been a lot closer, but we didn't see you necessarily need to play Pokemon. You brought in Scolipede, you clicked Mega Horn, and you just kind of broke through team. We feel the Scarf Circuitry was an incredibly smart bring. Like, it would have won 5-0 if it didn't get crit, but it's tough to really put it on paper without the remainder of the battle happening more naturally. So we have you at number 3. We feel you played really well, but given the circumstances and the play of your opponent, we felt that we didn't want to put you too high because we didn't see you actually play Pokemon, but you did dominate the game, so it was an awkward balance. Just play really well next week, and this won't be an issue, and we'll just kind of adjust to an actual level. We know you're capable of playing at a very high skill level, and we're looking forward to seeing that continue in the future weeks. Next up at number 2, we have It's Whatever, coach of the Sacramento Nido Kings, and It's played very defensively, but given the matchup in his opponent, he didn't need to play any other way. His only wall breakers were Weavile and Mega Heracross, and he had answers to both of those in Sylveon and Infernape, and additionally Milotic to an extent. I don't know the calc on Bullet Seed Mega Heracross on Milotic with Flame Orb, but I can't imagine it's doing too much. But again, Heracross has a huge attack stat. Anyway, going into it, we feel you benefited a lot from that Tangrowth not having Regenerator, again, to the extent of Thunder's analysis. But we feel you played your win cons really well. The biggest thing that we wanted to stress is to scout for Scarfs. Obviously, Galvantula as a lead traditionally is Sticky Web, but there was no sense in risking your Greninja when you had a pretty clean switch into Sylveon later. Additionally, Golbat defogs on 1, 2, 3 of your opponent's mons. So that's something to keep in mind. Play a little bit safer in the future, just not risking them on, because turn 1 you were down 6-5, but after that you played really intelligently with your defensive switches. Ultimately we felt that you just kind of, it's weird to see a game being controlled defensively, but you did that, and you noticed that your opponent didn't have Regenerator on his Tangrowth, and then that's when you started just kind of like whittling down, and then towards late game you just brought in Sylveon, clicked Typhon Voice a couple times, and the game was over. So we feel you played your team very well, and we hope to see you continue to do so. Anyway, really good game to It's. Moving on, we got number 1. Unfortunately, it pains me to do this, but we have Joel, coach of the Philadelphia Fanfees, at number 1. I'm just kidding about the whole it pains me to do this. Joel's a good friend of mine, not biasing my opinion in any way because I hate Joel, but we felt Joel handled this game so well. He has 2 mons that do not appreciate Goth Trap, and he prepped around that perfectly. Weezing and Lop both got out of Goth Trap very easily. Didn't allow Goth to set up, really do anything this matchup. I think got a paralysis on Serena, and that was pretty much the extent of it. Ultimately, we felt it was really strong prep with speed creeping on Xcloud. Again, going back to Tim, we feel it was a misplay on his opponent's end, but he took advantage of it. His opponent didn't really have a flamethrower switch in any way aside from Embor, and Embor was already chipped down to the point where Xcloud would have killed it the next turn with Boom Burst. So, really good play on Joel's part. The baton pass Mega Lopunny was a very, very intelligent bring. Could have seen a sub with that because Goth is the always answer to Lopunny, maybe Mega Scizor, but sub baton pass would have been really good. Allow Sharpedo to sweep a little bit easier. But yeah, overall, we felt that the Shed Shell, Weezing, the ability to get out of trap with 3 of your Pokemon, and then the rest obviously not caring about being trapped by Gothitelle, Dugtrio, or Magnezone was really intelligent prep on your end. And ultimately, you played your team very well. The biggest issue we had with this match for you was when you allowed your Weezing to get down. I know you're aware of this, because you mentioned it, and we were talking about it after the game. You kept the offensive pressure up well enough that you didn't necessarily allow Slurpuff to set up. But if Tim played a little bit more aggressively, that game very easily could have been won. But with that being said, it's easy in theory modding, but you kept the offensive pressure up very, very well, and you didn't allow that Slurpuff to get in. So that is why we have you at number 1. Additionally, the Acidic Downpour was a very intelligent bring, given that Poison Jab does not kill at neutral with Life Orb, so the Acidic Downpour gave you that extra bump. You also got that Scizor out of the way with your allowing for the Mega Sharpedo sweep. But overall, we feel that you played the best out of the D-League this week. And that's why we have Joel at number 1. And with that being said, that is going to wrap up PWC D-League Week 1 Power Rankings. If you have issues with any of our rankings, or you have any comments, concerns, etc., I don't care. So, yeah, there's that. X might care, so you should definitely DM X. He wants to hear all of your concerns about where you're ranked, any explanations, yada, yada, yada. So make sure you DM XRN. He will be in Discord all night long answering all of your questions. Until next week, though, peace out, PWC fans.